This is not a race. It's a contest between crew and clock. It's about driving from one control point on the map to another and arriving there on the exact minute specified by the organisers. Not a minute too soon and not a minute too late. All traffic regulations and speed limits must be obeyed, and furious driving isn't necessary because the time allowed is generous.
I'm amazed that we're on the right road.
But the clock doesn't stop ticking while crews make their minds up whether to turn left or right. The clock doesn't stop ticking as wheels scrabble for grip on icy hills, and the clock doesn't stop ticking as tiredness sets in after 28 hours on the road. It ticks remorselessly on, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. It makes no allowance for climatic conditions in fair weather or foul, in blazing sun or blizzard. A minute is still 60 seconds. If a junction is missed, time passes before the mistake is realized. Time passes as steps are retraced and the correct route is refound. It's time that's lost forever. Clocks can never be put back. And finally, when the finish control point is reached, the clock speaks. Its truth is absolute, its truth is time, time is absolute, and you know the truth. You know whether you've won or lost your battle with time. And then it all starts again on the next section. Brooklands was the starting choice for most of the British entrants, and their cars ranged from little to large, Spartan al fresco to lordly luxury. Andrew Barron's Lotus 7 and Brian Williamson's 1927 Phantom 1. But perhaps the strangest choice was Monte Mail's Hupmobile with no front brakes.
It was manufactured in 1923, taken to South Africa by an Englishman called H.P. Rose, and in 1924 he managed to beat the Cape Town to Joburg express train. It was then lost, and it was found again by Mr. Sarrell in just before 1990. He put the car back together again and then did a rerun in 1990, beating the train yet again. He unfortunately died, sent it over to England, we picked it up, rebuilt the engine, and it's alive and kicking still.
Only just alive is John Malcolm Barker's MGC.
We did break down on the way down, yes, on the M25. Fuel starvation of some sort, just loss of power. And we stopped the car, started it up a couple of times, and it just faded away.
This is the old SU hit it with a shoe job?
Yes, that's right. So then we did it again, and then it kept going. So that's where we are at the moment. So
bit of muck.
Not quite sure what it is. We've got a spare fuel pump, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Bit brave to do it in an MGC, isn't it?
I don't, brave's probably not the right word. It's the only car we've got.
Flagged away by Heidi, the Phantom 1 has difficulty with the first corner. Meanwhile, across the North Sea, the Dutch resort of Noordwijk welcomes another 35 starters. The Dutch teams have a tremendous record on this event, and last year's winner, Bert Dolk, leads the way in his Alfa Giulietta Sprint, co-driven on this occasion by the 1999 Classic Marathon winner Jan Berkhoff. A strong team if ever there was one. And in Holland too, there are those who are having difficulty making it to the start. Paul Manassian and John Vipond have had to call in the services of roving mechanic Peter Banham to fix a lazy petrol pump on the Healy. They were eventually to get underway.
You got any Spanish in there? Yes. Sorry? Well, I said that to him.
Arthur Wood and Richard Wood.
Back at Brooklands, Monte Mail's has the Hupmobile all fired up and ready to go. Now where's the train he has to race? Rally sponsor Jeremy Holden was rushed off to hospital last night with suspected pneumonia, so his co-driver Paul Grogan has at the last moment drafted in Leeds lawyer Paul Houghton to drive the Holden Plus 8. Terence Hefty has brought his Lancia Aurelia B20S all the way from Colorado to compete. Across the channel in Belgium, the Gothic splendour of the wool exchange in Ypres provides the backdrop to the batch of entrants who've elected to start their Millenium Montes from here. Paul Carter arrives in his XK140 Coupe, a full race version with 264 brake horse on tap. This car was raced by the Reverend John Follingham, the Flying Vicar, during the 70s, against the likes of Tony Hildebrand. Another delicious Lancia, this time an Aurelia BGT. This is George Melville's immaculate example. George Niblett has forsaken his trusty TR4 for this rather good-looking 356. There are two routes this year, the Sporting and the Marathon, which is rather less arduous and gives crews more time in bed. Cars numbered below 200 are on the Marathon route. And already approaching Dover are Brian Litchfield and Trevor Reed in their 1949 TC. Over in Holland, the Noordwijk starters have reached the first control in Baal, which is a bit of Belgium, entirely surrounded by Holland, and finding the way out of Belgium Baal back into Holland and then into Belgium proper is proving difficult for some. The Davis Williams XK120 makes this 90 left, as they should. But Herman Maas goes sailing on into the wide blue yonder in his light 15. Over in England, the 1931 Austin 7 Ulster has reached Dover in the hands of Barry Pound and Simon Tregunner. There's a separate classification for vintage cars, and for this rally, that means anything built before 1950. The two Pauls in the Holden Morgan prepare to board the ferry along with the rest of the 120 Brooklyn starters. David Boreham's ex-Works and ex-Gazzanides TR2 checks in ahead of Michael Moss's Healy 3000. Across the water, the Ypres starters have left their lunch stop in Chimay and are crossing into France. Edward Schrauers is tackling the sporting route in his Rover 2000, as hordes of classics disembark in Calais to start the long run down to Troyes. There was a sharp frost in England last night, and quite a few have had the strength of their antifreeze tested, including James McBrien, who has blown a core plug on his MGB.
Oh, only insofar as it blew out the core plug on the other side of the engine block this morning. It was the first frost he'd hit and the antifreeze wasn't really good enough. So we've ended up in a situation where he's had to replace the core plug, and we're now strengthening the antifreeze to get it up to us. Yeah, keep going.
Down the road, a stationary Volvo. It's the fancied crew of Frank Fennell and Kevin Savage.
Just a slight water leak. There's plenty of water in France.
Well, there has been in the last while.
Something to do with last night's frost, was it?
Possibly. Will we do? Will we buy some more later on?
The rest of the convoy heads off to tour the part of Calais as we jump forward to Troyes to welcome the first arrivals from Noordwijk, including Bert Dolk.
Bert, 1999 winner. How's the first day gone?
Excellent, excellent. Yes, nice and quiet, you know. Cruising. I think the real business starts tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's another Dutch win, do you think?
We're going for it. We're going for it. But you know, we have a lot of mountains to climb, and there's a lot of snow and ice. So we have to be careful this time. I think it will be a lot different than last year. Definitely.
The weather is going to play a part.
Yes, absolutely. But we'll do our best.
Despite his pre-start problems, Paul Manassian has reached Troyes. Co-driver John Vipon tells the story.
How's it gone, John? Pretty well. We had a bit of trouble this morning before the start. Fuel pump packed up. And then the points closed. That was before we got to the start line, but after that it's not been bad. Bit of trouble in Belgium finding somebody that would take out our plastic, but other than that, been a fine day. No problem.
And in from the wide blue yonder comes the light 15. They've found their way after all. But co-driver Renier Labadie is looking a bit sheepish. Next morning, and more frost to deal with. You're scraping the wrong side of the screen. More serious trouble though for the Lichfield TC. They've diagnosed a broken differential and will go no further without a replacement. James McBrien is thankful for that antifreeze he put in at Calais, and the core plug is holding out. But Peter Banham is deep inside the Phantom 1's #1 cylinder.
What's the problem, Peter?
Something foreign in the front wheels, in the front cylinder. And we're trying to find if there's something more. It's closing the plugs up. So we're fishing for metal.
We found a ball about that round of aluminium in the #1 piston. And they're not quite sure where the aluminium's come from. But whilst we were running in last night for the last hour, it got pounded up and down by the cylinder. And they think that may have made it round, and they fished it out last night with a bit of grease on the end of a screwdriver.
Today's route runs in a southeasterly direction to Poligny in the Jura Mountains, where the Dutch and English starters will meet up with the crews from Oslo, Ypres and St. Moritz, and for the first time the rally will be complete. The competitive stuff can now start as the route runs via St. Claude to Aix-les-Bains. Michael Moss points the Healy bonnet across the damp French countryside, a portent of snow to come perhaps. Northwest of Dijon, the route turns right along the Burgundy Canal and heads towards the vintners village of Nuit-Saint-Georges, except that nobody finds the turn and they all go straight on before realising their error. Only the three-man crew of the Bywater brothers and Mike Wheatley get it right first time. Mark Sawicki returns from the other direction. As do Eben Froggatt and Keith Hill. Amazingly, Williamson's Rolls is still running. Well, 5 pots out of 6 should be enough. St. Claude, famous gathering point on many welcomes the parade, but running time in the mountains is much tighter and cards have to be stamped with little delay. Guy Hewitt gets away, leaving the good people of St. Claude to marvel at the Broderick superb Invicta S-Type. Up in the hills, though, things are very different. The weather starts to play its part. Now and again, the organisers pop in a secret check. This is to catch out any crews that have been going too fast. They are not allowed to exceed the set average speed by more than 25%.
This control?
This is a secret control. The time on the clock is 14:58. Thank you. You may go.
It's important not to get a time which would prove that you've been going too fast. Confused? Well, some competitors are, and around 13 get 30-minute penalties for checking in too early. One way of reducing one's average speed between controls is to keep missing junctions and waste time turning round. Not much time wasted there, but if you don't realise you've gone wrong until you're, say, 5k down the road, then 10 minutes is lost forever. Route designer Keith Bode is at the next control in Saint-Germain-de-Joux and has the latest news.
The cars are now coming through from St. Cloud. They're all on the common route now. They've all joined together from the different starts and they're now into much tighter sections in the Jura Mountains. We've had snow on the road through from the last section from St. Cloud. We know we've got more snow ahead before they get to Aix-les-Bains this evening. So it's starting getting tough from now on, and you can see from the stress on people's faces that they're not sure whether they made their last control on time.
The Morgan, though, was early, and navigator Paul Grogan collected 10 minutes penalty. Now it's back up into the mountains and the Col de Barentin, where conditions are very much worse, as David Liddell and in a moment Graham Brazier are finding out. Keep both hands on the wheel, Graham. It looks as if Michael Kuntz has had his MGB off the road, but worse trouble is to befall the Fennell Savage pairing. At the next control, Kevin will check in 1 minute early and collect a 2-minute penalty, putting the fancied crew down to 37th overall. Father and son team David and Nigel Redwood are testing the limits of the TR's rear-end adhesion. Down in Aix-les-Bains, the day ends with an auto test set out alongside the lake. We're going to ride with Andrew Davidson and Nigel Reid in the Healy 3000. They dropped 3 minutes on the run into St Claude and will start tomorrow 45th of the 124 marathon route runners. Monty Males has got the unlikely Hupmobile here safely, though he has had to cut 3 controls out to do so. The car may have beaten the Blue Train, but it's no match for today's TGVs.
Oh, have a little chicane.
Start braking about here.
You'll do for me 79.56, and that's not the slowest.
Not the slowest, but the quickest time was 47 seconds, put up by George Durney in his rapid Jaguar Special. The third day will see the cars head off south to tackle classic Monte climbs and the Chartreuse before passing through Grenoble and circling the Vercors in a clockwise direction, then climbing the Col de Roussay onto the plateau itself and descending through the Grand Goulet Gorge and heading west to the overnight halt in Valence. The Redwoods pass hesitatingly through the village of Saint-Pierre-en-Entremont on their way up to the Col de Coucheron. Merci, monsieur. Herman Maas is clean on the road, but poor results on yesterday's 2 regularities and the test means he's down in 32nd position. The Jorgensen Corrin Mercedes 300 SE is 30th. He's pushing on a bit, trying to escape the clutches of the British police. Ewing and Webster in the Wolseley 6110, 34th. From Switzerland comes André Kunz with his German co-driver Manfred Schneider. Paul Carter is further down the field than he'd like. The XK's got condenser problems and the brakes aren't too cracky either. Was that Graham Brazier trying to spin the Beetle again? An Italian entered Lancia Flavia. As the 2 Pauls climb up in the Holden Morgan, they're no doubt wondering why they're languishing in 59th place. Checking in 5 minutes earlier to control yesterday was no help. George Niblett and Howard Wilcock are clean on the road and have just taken the marathon route lead. Veen Hackenbroek 300 SE descends from Saint-Pierre-en-Chartreuse. Last evening's auto test winners George Durney and Jörg Koenig are still flying in the SS Jaguar Special. Jim and Tim Elston descend cautiously. They were 20th in the marathon field as they left Aix this morning. At the Vif control south of Grenoble, co-drivers check in, but the organisers have had to do some on-the-spot organising.
And we've just learned, with only about 10 minutes before our cars were due to leave here, that Subaru have closed the road for testing for the Monte Carlo in a couple of weeks' time, and therefore we haven't got a route. So we've had to issue a monstrous reroute, and we've just completed with about 10 seconds to go before the first car leaves.
Right. Have you worked out the reroute?
Yes, thank you. Works very well.
Well, I'm smiling because he's making me look slimmer.
For the first time since Sunday, the sun makes an appearance as the climb up the Rousset is commenced. The Rousset at the southern edge of the Vercors Massif really marks the border between the cooler mountains of the north and warmer climes of Provence. The weather is nearly always different on one side of the peak than the other, as we shall see. Dutchman Renger Huliker takes the climb steadily. This is a regularity where a set average speed has to be maintained indefinitely, as the location of the finish control is secret. The Fiat 1600S has a 1 second lead at the restart, but they've now stretched that to 3 seconds, and 7 seconds ahead of this man Bert Dolk, who now lies equal 7th overall, having dropped 3 places on the Col de la Porte. Michael Corns arrives at the top with veteran co-driver Willie Cave. They left Aix this morning 6 seconds behind the leader, but Willie has missed a secret check and picked up a 30-minute penalty. Oh dear. A tunnel has been cut through the top of the mountain, and this is where the weather changes. Bart Rietbergen and Ben Rotering drop down into the Vercors. A spot-on performance on the last regularity has brought them up from 12th to share 7th spot with Dolk. Zapp leads Jorgensen on the road, but the Norwegian is ahead in the results. The Manassian Vipont Healy is running well now and up to 11th, but before the day is out they'll find themselves off the road and looking for a tow. The Johnson Sears MGA Coupe was 14th overnight, and they're holding station. Hurrying on down to the next control, the Sunbeam Talbot 90 of Peter and Linholm Baker. And this is where they're heading, La Chapelle-en-Vaucourt. How's the morning gone for Peter Locks?
A few undiscovered ice patches, yes, which raise the blood pressure, but that's about all.
And some sunshine too.
Yes, and fog. So,
Lots of it.
yes, I think we've covered just about everything, but we need more snow. If you could have a word with the organisers and arrange it, I'd be grateful.
Mass's traction Avant will be good if it snows.
So now very good. Hardly any major problem. With a lot more power, car lies a lot better on the road. So up till now we're doing very well. And no major problem wherever. Regularities are a bit difficult, but that's, you know, the adjusting and partially snow. You got a lot of spin on the road, and you in the corners you slide a bit, so the Twin Master then is not as exact as it should be. Apart from that, everything at the moment in working order.
One of the few ways down from the Vercors is this narrowest of gorges. With defences like this, it's no wonder the resistance were able to hold out there for most of the war. The road is an incredible piece of engineering. It's like driving through mouse holes on the mantelpiece. Second overall behind Huliker is another Dutch crew, Jos Willems and Huub Hendricks. Starting the last climb before Valence, the Dolk Berkhoff Julietta. The Irish pairing of Gavitt and Jackson, a 5th overall, with Corns and Cave now well down the field. The Zapf Bergershausen Mercedes lies 16th, 6 places behind Manassian and Vipont. At the top, low cloud makes for very tricky conditions. But down the other side, things improve. This is the Mark II of Phil Bergen and Des Woods. Desperate to recover from yesterday's 2-minute mistake, Frank Fennell improves on his 37th position. There are 3 Wolseley 6110s in the field, all going well despite their size, but they do have Healy 3-litre engines. After checking in at Valence, the Sporting Route boys set off immediately for a 3-hour loop in the Ardèche, fumbling their way around a maze of roads on the high ground to the west of the Rhône, and it's here that the whole complexion of the rally changes, with most teams losing time. Only one crew managed to visit each of the 6 controls on time, Corns and Cave making amends for their earlier mistake. They were 5.5 minutes better than the next best crew, simply brilliant. For most of the rest, it had been a nightmare, and there were stories to tell as the survivors pulled into Valence later in the evening for a well-earned dinner and a rest.
Bloody awful. Bloody awful. Hard work. We got lost, but we got to get a time, so we got to go. Thank you very much.
How's it gone, Andrew?
Not so good tonight. Got a bit lost up there in the hills with an awful lot of other people all going round in circles.
Hello, chaps. How's it gone?
Well, I think if we'd been batting for England, we might have won the test. We put up a marvellous cricket score, but had a lot of fun otherwise. Good.
Perkins and Pringle have had a good run in the PV 544, 4th best performance of the night, behind Corns, Fennell and Dolk.
Excellent. It's hectic. Fabulous evening.
We're the first ones to say that.
It's a surprise. We're only joking. We haven't lost our sense of humour.
No, well done.
The final leg will see the sporting competitors pack in 28 hours of nearly non-stop driving before the finish in Cannes tomorrow. As they leave Valence, this is the order. Fennell and Savage are the new leaders, a minute 22 seconds ahead of the Dolk Berkhoff Alpha. In third, another Perkins and Chris Pringle. And Bart Rietbergen is up to 4th in the Volvo-dominated parade. The Taylor Booth 6110 is a brilliant 5th, and Ole Jorgensen 6th. Returning to Valence last night, he slipped in the shower and cracked 2 ribs. Doesn't seem to have affected his driving, though. Christopher Agues has his Mark II into the top 20. Monte regulars Richard Prosser and Rob Lyle drop down to the Bordeaux control in 15th place, but after Bordeaux they find themselves with a choice. Lyle says left. Willie Cave says right, ignoring the marked map and risking another secret check. The left turn is right and the right turn is wrong. It looks like a shortcut, but ends in a narrow village and a tight hairpin back onto the route. Those who turn left get an easy run down the main road. On now through sleepy villages to the next climb, the Col de Soubirous, where it's icy on the top. Riedbergen has dropped 8 minutes changing his dynamo and has lost 3 places. Jorgensen profits from that and gets past Taylor's Wolseley as well to go 4th. Next target, Roy Perkins, 5 minutes ahead. Alex van Tienhoven is not having a very good run with a tiny Fiat Abarth, enjoying the ice, but down in 27th spot. The Constabulary, meanwhile, has moved up the order from 34th to 11th. May the force be with you. They now have just over a minute in hand over the Pickering Rossiter Rapier. George Durney has time to stop and regale our cameraman for not putting him right at that T-junction.
I tried to do such a good show for you in this right-hand bend. Why didn't you tell me that it goes straight?
I should have told you. I should have told you, but you know.
Oh, that's right.
I was looking at him as well, so I couldn't see it.
You're obviously enjoying the event.
Very much so.
Excellent.
And at the moment we're out of fuel. This is why we're rolling.
Good luck.
Bye, thank you.
Not quite the snow that Peter Locks was looking for, but enough ice for a little slide. The Williams-Davis XK120 has been as high as 11th, but a bucketful of road penalties yesterday has pushed them down to 32nd. Andy Ackman and Peter Ward at 28th in the little Sebring Sprite. Leaving Valence, the marathon class was being led by Jim and Tim Elston. They're still clean on the road and had an 8-second advantage over the Bywaters and Mike Wheatley in the PB544. However, the first 4 in the class all made a cock-up of the morning's regularity, allowing 5th place man John Wright to take the lead in his TR4, just 3 seconds ahead of Gonzalez Flowers MGA. Amazingly, the vintage class is being led by the smallest engined car in the rally. The 750cc Ulster is driven by Barry Pound, while Simon Tregunner drives the clocks. An archetypal French car graces gorgeous French scenery. The Dobbs Opie TR3A suffered back axle failure on the run down to Aix, and they've been struggling to get back on terms ever since. George Melville is just about dead last of the sporting runners. The lunch halt is at Rosan, and the Swiss have obviously found fuel for the special. The welcome break gives us a chance to talk to the new leader, Frank Fennell.
It's going fine today.
You dropped a minute, didn't you? You booked in early or something? Early on?
That was on day 1. Kevin checked in early and gave us 2 minutes penalty and put us back to 37. Last night helped. We got it together and we came back up to be first this morning. So we're quite happy now. We just keep our fingers crossed that things go well.
No change in the leaderboard as they tackle the Col de Pomerol. And George Durney continues to entertain. Off the mountain and past the honey-baked village of La Chasse. Further east now and after Vane, there's a regularity up the road to Barcelonnette. Bergen and Wood are disappointed as they drop 2 minutes 43 seconds here. Anthony Ward and David Harris do rather better with just 13 penalty seconds. Mark Kelly has a technical report for us on the state of their Volvo.
A couple of little problems with throttle springs and a couple of bolts coming out, but aside from that we're going great.
You lost time?
Looking good. Lost a bit of time on irregularity just behind a local Audi rolling on down the hills there, but aside from that, no, we're doing well, having a good time.
Peter and Anne Locks are about to start the regularity where they are 6th best, dropping just 3 seconds. And Andy Ackman seems to have recovered from last evening's disasters.
It's not too bad, much better than last night. Now we've got our act together again, so we hope we're going to do a little bit better now. We've got 2 people to catch in front of us. First in class, second in class, third in class all together, so it's all to play for.
You're laughing anyway.
Yeah, still am.
We're enjoying it.
Well done.
There's a short break in gap before the long night ahead, and the Alpha is still second. Dolk has closed the gap by 14 seconds during the day, but he's still over a minute behind Fennell.
Still going strong?
Oh, very good. Enjoying it till so far. No problems. Waiting for this night.
You've a big night though.
Yeah. Must be.
Where's your best chance of getting ahead, do you reckon?
Oh, I really don't know. It means a lot of kilometers, a lot of nice stages, also from the modern Monte Carlo. And, well, maybe on the last one, the Turini.
But have you
says?
Have you got to wait for him to make a mistake?
That's a very good team, a very good driver, a very good co-driver. And, well, we are in the same circumstances, so it will be close, I hope.
And how has Fennell's run gone today?
Very pleasant day. Nice weather at times. Just slippy on the snowy side of the northern side of the slopes, but otherwise very, very good.
And you fended Bert off, have you?
No, we've kind of kept at bay, you know. We're not sure of the actual gap now because I know we're in gap, but we're not sure of the actual gap.
But this is going to be the year after all those second places.
Oh, I don't know. There's another 12 hours driving, so I would never count my chickens, you know. I've been unlucky before, but maybe we'll see.
You got over the flu?
I have. It's much better, but it's there. But when you get the adrenaline going, it doesn't matter. You just the speed takes over. So we'll forget about the flu.
And so the long night begins, a night during which honours are evenly divided between Fennell and Dolk, who gains just 1 second on his rival over the legs of 4 tests. Ewing and Webster will bring the police car home in 11th place. Corns and Cave complete the rally without a single road penalty, but for that secret check 3 days ago, they would have won the rally outright. Their reward, 5th overall, and the spirit of the Rally Award. But it didn't all end on a high note. Michael Kuntz hit rock bottom in his MGB when he plunged 100 feet over the edge. Fortunately, the crew were uninjured and Tony Folkes was soon abseiling down the cliff to start the rescue operation.
Is it going to come?
The Vintagiants were safely tucked up in bed as the last of the sporting competitors left gap to begin the night run to the top of the Turini. The final control for Andrew Johnson and Richard Sears. Waiting there to greet the survivors was Eric Carlson, twice winner of the Monte Carlo Rally for Saab.
It is fantastic just to be here and see all the old cars. And they are competitive.
Still trying hard, Paul Merriweather and Sandra Deacon. They finish 14th overall. Eric's wife, Pat Moss Carlson, the Monte Carlo Rally's most prolific coup de dame winner, is enjoying the nostalgia too.
It's nice to come back up here, I must say, and see the Turini and see lots of the old cars and hear the Healey's. That does take me back. And I think they must have had a lovely time. I'd have loved it when I was a bit younger, but there you go. And there's so many cars in such good condition. It's nice to see so many makes and that sort of thing. So long may it flourish.
The Locks check in to finish 15th overall and best Healey. Pat Moss shone in the big Healey, and now she's reunited with one, and it's Growl.
This noise must bring back a few memories,
I'll say it does. Fantastic noise. We've got a few more instruments than we used to have, that's a fact.
After a brush-off from the Monaco Mafia, the event needed a new finish. The AC de Cannes stepped in and laid on a splendid finish ceremony by the balmy Mediterranean. The champers lay ready, and the police escorted the tired crews into town. What better way to celebrate his birthday then for Frank Fennell, along with Kevin Savage, to win the Monte Challenge after finishing second on 3 previous occasions. About a flu and an early check-in, now all forgotten. Bert Dolk and Jan Berkhoff tried all they knew, and it was very close through that last night. But last year's winners have to be content with second. 2 previous Monte winners, Carlson and Paul Easter, look on as there's a surprise for third. Roy Perkins has been docked 30 minutes for an illegal digital thermometer. And so the man with the broken ribs, Ole Jorgensen, guided by Björn Koren, takes the prize. And for Barry Pound and Simon Tregunner, perhaps the biggest welcome. Not only were they the best Vintagiants, they were the best novices and finished 16th in a field of 124 marathon route runners. Fantastic. George Niblett and Howard Wilcock worked wonders on the final leg, moving up 18 places to win the marathon section. As others struck trouble or made mistakes, George and Howard hit every control on time. Well done.